Okay, for the multiple choice, number 1. Okay, now you can either do the top line, find its answer, do the bottom line, find its answer, then divide both, and then square root, or we're going to use brackets for the top and brackets for the bottom, and wait for the square root, and we end up getting 2.27 whatever, and the square root of our answer is 1.5085 ... We want 3 significant figures, which is 1, 2, and 3. So we stop there. The 8 affects the 0 to make it 5, 1, which is D. Alright, give me 2 numbers that times together to give you -6. So that's either 6 and 1, 3 and 2, and add together to give you -5. So because it's -6, we want 1 positive and 1 negative, and we've got 1 and 6, which is C. Alright, so with 3, you can either get your first answer of A, which was -5, and sub it into where the B is, and see if it equals this. In this case it does. The other way, if it wasn't multiple choice, okay, remember we expand all of this, so we get x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus bx plus b plus 2. Put all the x squareds together, there's only one of those. Put the x's together, which is the 2 plus b, and put all the other numbers together. Now because that's already lined up, it's pretty easy that this here must be equivalent to that. So 2 plus b must equal -3. Take away 2 from both sides. B is -5, which was your A. Okay, for the gradient and the y-intercept. So obviously the y-intercept is -6. Now the gradient, we must rise 6 and run 6. 6 over 6 is equal to 1. So gradient of 1 and y-intercept of -6 is A. 5. Now because it's multiple choice, you can use your answers. So we're going to firstly put 60 in. Because 60 is a half, half of 2 is 1, 1 plus 1 is not 0. So it cannot be 60. So therefore it cannot be B or A. So therefore we can test 120 doesn't matter. We can test 240 in there, and you get 240. Cos 240 will be -1/2. -1/2 of 2 is -1, plus 1 is 0. So it's obviously C. Alright, now without multiple choice, we have to solve the equation. So let's take away 1 from both sides. So we get 2 cos x equals -1. Divide by 2. So we get -1/2. Now we go to our exact triangles, our exact ratio triangles on the formula sheet, and we will see that 1/2 for cos is 60. So this angle here will be 60, but we also want it all stations to central because it's to 360. Cos is negative, so we only want these 2 quadrants. So 60 does not bother us, but we're going to use 60 in this quadrant, which is 180 minus 60, which is 120, and in this quadrant 180 plus 60, which is 240, which is obviously, as we said, the C. 6, okay, which is not a function. Alright, so a function only has one y value for every x value. Or the vertical line test can only touch once. So x equals 1 is a line through that. So our vertical test, if we test a vertical line on this, you'll see it touches infinitely. So obviously that is not a function. But let's look at the other one. Y equals 1 is that. Our vertical line test only hits once, so that's fine. Now, with C, what we're going to do is we square both sides, so we get x squared equals y, which is just a normal parabola, which is basically that. But because we're going to the original function, x can only be positive, so we're only talking about that side. So the actual function is half of the parabola. But with the vertical line test anyway, it still only hits once. Now with D, square both sides, we get y squared equals x. Now that is a parabola on the side, like that, which isn't a function. But we're after the original one, and we only want the positive, which is there, because y can only be positive when you square root x. And you'll see then that that is a function, because we only care about the vertical line hitting the blue. So obviously it's A. Okay, 7. We need the value of k, so both those lines are perpendicular. So we need the gradient of this second line. So let's put it into y equals mx plus b. So we get, add 3y to both sides, we get x equals 3y, divide by 3, we get a third x equals y. So the gradient is a third, but if it's perpendicular, then the gradient of the perpendicular line, it needs the negative reciprocal. So therefore, the gradient of this line must equal negative 3. So let's put it in y equals mx plus b. So add ky to both sides. So we get 2x equals ky. Divide by k, we get 2 over kx equals y. Therefore, 2 over k, which is the gradient, must equal this gradient. Let's times by k both sides. And now let's divide by negative 3. So we get k equals negative 2/3, which is b. Alright, so with this identity, now because it's multiple choice, you can actually choose a value, say let's say 60, put it into both these, get an answer, and then sub it into each one of your answers and see if you get the same answer. But if you don't have multiple choice, then obviously it's best to solve it. So 1 minus cos squared x, you can look at your identities, and that's very similar to the sine squared plus cos squared equals 1. It's just rearranged, so therefore we know that to be equal to sine x squared x over tan. Now, we're going to change the over to a divide, so we get sine x squared x divided by tan x. Sine squared x, tan is the same as sine over cos. And what can we do when we divide fractions? We can change it to a times and flip. And therefore now we can cancel that sign for one of those, and we're left with sine x cos x, which is equal to c. Alright, the limit, you can't sub 1 into the bottom because you'll get 0 and you can't have 0, so we have to factorise first. So the limit, so the first one is a difference of 2 squares, so x minus 1, x plus 1. The next one, x is common, x minus 1, cancels. We can now sub x in. We get 1 plus, sorry, no, we can sub x equals 1 in. 1 plus 1 over 1, which equals to 2, which is your D. Now, a regular polygon, that each interior is equal to 5 times of each exterior. So the interior, each interior of a polygon is represented by n minus 2 times 180 over how many there are. And that has to equal, now every exterior, the sum of exterior is 360. So every one must be 360 divided by how many there are, and that needs to be times by 5 to be equivalent. Alright, let's times by n both sides to get rid of the divide, and they just cancel each other out. Therefore we get, expand the brackets, 180 n minus 360 equals 1800. Add 360 to both sides and you get 160 divided by 180 and you get n equals 12, which is